Hey guys, my name is Naomi Jones and I'm here with Marcus the Visual. He has given me the honor to interview him for my research series. So let's start off by getting a self-description and introduction from you.
Like you said, I am Marcus Williams. I am a character designer, I think primarily. I've been illustrating for, I guess, professionally over 20 years now, based in Atlanta. And I think I've always loved drawing characters. I just didn't know that I was a character designer or a character concept artist until another artist told me about it. And I was in my mid 20s at that point. I'm like, character designer, really? But yeah, I'm also a comic artist. I've worked on recently character design for Sony picture animation for a new show coming up called Young Love. It's pretty cool.
Oh.
So that's some new stuff. Yeah, my comic that I produce is with a good friend of mine and business partner, Greg Burnham. We co-write the story. It's an independent comic, Tuskegee Airs. We've been doing that for about 6 years. So I'm still drawing and doing character design. I love fan stuff. So I'm a huge fan of sci-fi, action, adventure, fantasy, you name it. So video games. So I draw a lot of fan art. That's what I usually post online. So, and comic stuff. So that's, I guess, me in a nutshell for the most part. Yeah.
So the first question is for the young artists out there who have these dreams of becoming recognized or working with big companies. You kind of touched based on it, but right after high school, how did you really get to where you are? Did you always know you wanted to be a comic book artist? Was my first question.
Well, so I wanted, from the earliest points, cartoons influenced me first. As a young person, kid, 3, 4 years old, I saw cartoons. And so that was my first real inspiration. I thought I wanted to be an animator because that's what I saw on TV, Disney, and, Looney Tunes and all that good stuff, Tom and Jerry. So I loved animation. I thought I wanted to be an animator for the longest time, all throughout school. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be an animator. I'm an animator. And I get to high school and I finally actually got the chance to, really dive in and understand behind the scenes of what it takes to be an animator. And I was like, oh no, that's not. I'm not that kind of. I'm not that kind of artist. It's a lot of work, and it's very passion driven. Craft. You have to really love drawing. You have to love, the concept of after 50 drawings, I'm not done. I still have 75 to 500 to go to get this movement to really come to life. So yeah, that was a pivotal moment for me as an artist. And I was young enough to say, interesting. So if I don't want to do that, what do I want to do? But I did get introduced to comics in my early age as well. So I think around 7 is what I'm going to say it is. I got to check the math. But the first comic I picked up and started thumbing through was an X-Men comic that was given to me or borrowed from a local neighbor of mine. And he was like, you haven't heard of Wolverine? I'm like, what's a Wolverine? What is no. And so, yeah, it was drawn by Jim Lee at the time. He was a rock star artist for X-Men and Marvel. At that time, I had never seen anything like it. I was just like, so you're telling me this dude has blades coming out his hands, he has a metal skeleton, he can get shot, not die, and he's temperamental? This is amazing. I want to know everything I need to know about this. And the art, I didn't read the comic at all. I just thumbed through the drawings like daily. I was like, but how? How did he make it look like this? Up until that point, I'm doing, cartoons, video game art, Sonic the Hedgehog, things like that. So I'd never seen anything that detailed or dynamic before. So comic art was then seeded, but I could not draw anywhere close to that. I was not at the skill level to actually mimic that, but I tried. And that was one of those things at my young age. I remember at that age, my brother would actually like, dude, why can't you draw better? I'm like, shut up, I'm 7. Give me a second, I'm gonna get there. But it was one of those things where it didn't really matter that I was good. I knew what I wanted to get to, and that kept me drawing. And I'm like, all right, I don't know. And I was just reverse engineering everything I saw. But how to be a comic artist, what that meant as a career, how to make a living at it. None of that was in the picture. So I didn't know anything about the career itself. But yeah, I was influenced by comics. I would often draw my own little personal comics. They were terrible. They were really terrible. But I think that fast forward, once I graduated, and maybe a year or so out of high school, I had met Greg, who's, at the time, he was looking for an artist to do a comic, his own personal comic. And a mutual friend of ours introduced us, and he didn't believe I could draw because he had been kind of burned by some other artists that said they could draw, but they couldn't. And he's like, draw something right now. And, I'm just like, start sketching. So that actually started our very, very first actual comic project. For me as an artist, I'd never done a comic from first page to end. And that comic was called Starving Artist. I can probably send you some like a screenshot.
So I would love that. Yeah.
And the cool thing is we actually did get it on consignment. We got it into a store locally here in Atlanta called Criminal Records. And it was on consignment. We had a terrible business plan. It cost us $10 to print up the book at Kinko's. It was like a little print place at the time. And we were selling it for $4. So it was a really terrible strategy, but we wanted to just see if it would work. And we got the guy, the owner, to put it on the shelf. And we didn't tell anyone. We did not advertise it. We didn't go and say, hey, we got a book out. We just wanted to see if anyone would buy it. And he was putting it right next to major publishers, Marvel, DC, in the comic section. And to our surprise, we would come back. Actually, the guy called us like the next 3 days. He was like, hey, I'm gonna need some more of those comics.
Wow.
We're like, what? For real? Okay, cool. However, due to our bad business strategy, to print 5 books was $50. And it was like we were bleeding money instantly, every time. So we were excited, but we knew very quickly after about the 3rd replenish, hey, this isn't a very sustainable, man. Where's this money coming from? Because we're getting like $4 per thing. So we stopped, but at least that seed of, hey, we're not bad at creating comics. We can do this on our own. I knew I liked comics, and it was a start there. But it took many years. We took a break, and I didn't start drawing comics until maybe, I'd say 5 to 6 plus years later. And that's where I started working on a cat comic book called Hero Cats. So,
have you had any stories or concept at a young age that you were able to make later on in life come to life as a professional illustrator, or are you planning on doing so?
I'm planning on it. I had to tell someone recently that I love posting fan art because I don't have to be careful. Like, the shirt I'm wearing right now is my version of the next avatar. If I had my way, it would be an African-like based continent. Like after Korra, you just turn the little globe at the beginning of the intro, and there's this undiscovered African continent. And Abiyoye would be the next avatar. It's an African-like based, continent. And I went crazy. I created my own characters, backstories, everything, and I just posted online. And the people that are fans of Avatar are just as excited as I am, because I'm like, wouldn't this be cool? And while I don't own Avatar, I cannot publish a book officially, as a fan. Mm-hmm. I guess I get that fix. And if Nickelodeon or whoever owns it ever says, hey, that's a great idea, can we use it? Unlikely. But I don't have to technically be like, these are my characters. If you take them, it's all done based on fanship. So if I post my own ideas and I don't have something copywritten or in place legally, they can easily be swiped. And that's fair game. If I post it, people have the right to actually take it and run and say, well, I just saw the character, so yeah. But I rarely do that. Rarely do that. Tuskegee Airs is fine because we've already protected that with rights and so forth before we published it. So I can draw Tuskegee characters all day. I do have some other characters from back in the day that are they're in the oven. They're baking. So I have some good plans because now I have the skill to realize what I saw in my head. And oh man, I haven't shown this in any interview. I'm giving an exclusive.
Okay.
This is a very old sketchbook. As you can see, it's falling
Wow.
apart. This was like high school level stuff, man. Like I think I was 18 when I bought this, graduating high school and stuff. So there is art in here that I still hold like very dear to my heart. I proved that I was working at the movie theater when I was drawing in this. I still have the napkins. Hold on. This is the brown napkins from the movie theater. Okay. And this is like, I was character designing then. And I'm like, okay, I want to do this. And I want, but like this sketchbook literally has.
Wait,
like,
were you drawing that during the movie?
I was drawing that while I was behind the concession stand at the movie theater, yes. But this is, let me give you an example. So this is, I don't know if you can see this, but this is like me coming up with concepts back then. And I still love these concepts. I'm like, oh man, this book is like full of this. So this is, thank God it still stayed together. It's not been completely damaged, but designs that I'm like, dude, I still want to do this.
Those are amazing.
I'm still excited about it, but I have, it's been baking for all these years. This is like 20 years old at this point. So, but I do have some. I have not redrawn them and posted them, if that answers your question. No.
Oh, I'm excited to see what you come up with. Yeah. When exactly did you get your recognition and huge following? What was the first piece that really stood out to everyone?
Enough. And that's a good question, because people think that I was just out the gate. No, I had a Facebook page for a number of years. I didn't post anything on Facebook. When I understood what it was about, I'm like, so what is it now? Oh, okay. And I started posting art here and there. If anybody wants to prove me right, scroll all the way back to my timeline, 2013, 2014. I was posting random character designs, but it was just here and there. I want to say my very first breakout post was when I was responding to Anthony Piper. I don't know if you've heard of him. He had a book called Trill League and it wasn't a book yet. It was just, he was doing a parody of the Justice League, but he was using African-American characters, and it was a parody, it was comedy. He was making fun of, like, what if it was just a Black League of superheroes based on, and he had designed pretty much, he had a Batman, he had a Superman, he had a Robin, he had, all these characters, and he didn't have a Superwoman character. And so I was a fan of it. So I'm like, hey, I noticed you didn't do a Superwoman yet. And I tagged him in the post and I said, what about Supernatural? And he takes the post and he shares it. Now he had a following, a huge following, thousands of people. And he posted on his page, on his timeline. And he's like, yo, so Marcus just did this design. What do y'all think? Should I add this to the roster? And it, like, he was the Oprah. I was just a random dude. And that was my Oprah moment where I told him this when I met him. I'm like, yo, it's your fault. Because I didn't have a fan following before that. I got like over 800 friend requests that night. And I was like looking at my phone, like, what is wrong? Is this thing broken? Why is this many people? And it just, and so, that started like wildfire. And so fan following started there. So I do blame him if he, and I told him so. But after that moment, I suppose I started posting. I wasn't still posting regularly. That was just a single moment. And I was like, I'm inspired to do some character design. And actually at the point, I was like, you can use her if you want to. And, he was like, ultimately, he was like, you know what? You do something. And if you want to combine later, let's do that. You use the character and, make her what you want to be. I'm like, okay, cool. So, that was my start online.
And Supernatural ended up being a whole comic series, right?
It is, yeah. I got the concept. I did a Kickstarter years ago, but the comic has gone through a wonderful iteration of change from when I started the concept to now. So it's unpublished. but the goal is to publish it in a unique way versus what I thought I was going to do. So I've just changed as a person and an artist to say, because I'm a publisher now with Tuskegee Airs, I think there's a lot of loopholes in publishing comics. And there are answers, but there's not a lot of people exploring those answers. So instead of just putting the book out and just trying to transition into those answers, I wanted to solve the problem before publishing the book. So that's what I've been working on for the past 5 years now. So it is a series. It's going to be published very soon. So it's just been a roller coaster ride of just change. But yeah, Supernatural as a character, yes, she is a thing. So
when exactly did you get comfortable with your art style, and when did you, how exactly did you develop it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I usually chime on this because the style question is something that a lot of young artists get caught up on. Like, I'm trying to develop my style. And I'm like, you shouldn't be worried about style at an early stage where you're trying to improve just art. You're trying to get better at anatomy. You're trying to draw hands better. You're trying to get better at hand-eye coordination. Don't worry about style. That's the equivalent. The analogy I use is walking into a dojo and you want to learn martial arts, and you're there for a week and you're like, hey, this is great, teacher, but I want to develop my own style. And they'll probably look at you and be like, yeah, no, because you don't know what you're doing. So learn what I have to teach you, master that. And then when you go on from here, you can take, pick and choose what you find valuable for yourself. You can modify it, you can change it. But now that you've mastered these core elements, these core basics of line, shape, tone, stippling, hatching, whatever, all of the things that you do for drawing or, illustration, if you get those core elements, another good analogy is learning traditional music or classical music. It's very structured, okay? And I had a really good friend that was a pianist. All he learned from his young age to his adult life was classical music, but he could not for the life of him play jazz. He was like, that's too, my brain doesn't let go of the classical. But if he actually, got really focused and tuned in, and he surrounded himself with jazz, he could then get influenced by that other, methodology of it's okay to not follow the rules. It's okay to, stretch and pull. That is, to me, learning to draw portraits versus learning to draw cartoons or cartooning, period. Portrait is draw what you see. Exactly. If you see something or someone, you're drawing it, line by line. It's supposed to look exactly like the thing for the most part, versus cartooning, which is jazz, okay? Which is you see what you're looking at, but you're pulling and stretching and you're breaking, anatomy on purpose. But yet there is a purpose to either be funny, to make something, have a tone to it and all that stuff. So that's where style can come in. Once you understand those basics, you can break the laws or bend them to, have a voice. And that's where it's hard for young artists to understand it because, like I said, my first comic was Jim Lee. He was doing like martial arts on this level, and I'm looking at him like, I want to try to do your stuff. And my skill could not match his skill. But I sure tried, and I reverse engineered. So that was like, I didn't go into the dojo. I was looking into the window of the dojo and watching everybody else practice. And I was like, oh, cool, I'm gonna try that when I get home. But I never was trained formally, but just being exposed to that style, I went home and tried to draw and do everything as close as I could. And it still influenced my style eventually down the line. The artist that influenced me the most in comics was Joe Madureira, Joe Mad. He was another X-Men artist, very famous now, but he was a rock star at his time, and he was combining Asian, I want to say Eastern anime action and energy into Western style comics, and he put that together, and it was a new style for Western comics. X-Men had this style for a number of years, and that's what he was, has been made famous for. Now he's since grown in style, but he still has his core elements from what he built in as an X-Men artist. So I guess in basic saying, when you actually start to actually when you grow in skill as an artist, okay, and you feel confident that you can draw whatever you want visually, then you explore different styles. And now, for me, I've done cartooning. I worked on Powerpuff Girls as my very first commissioned, artist job. I don't know what Powerpuff Girl was, but there was a little lopsided head girls. They have no fingers, things like that. And it was like, the only reason I was able to do that job is I didn't have a style. I could draw like whatever someone asked me to. I was an illustrator early on. So if someone said, can you draw Charlie Brown? Can you draw Garfield? Can you draw X-Men? Can you draw my mom? As a portrait, I would say yes to all those things because I was comfortable with drawing what I saw. So if someone showed me a style of art, I can mimic that because I was confident with my line art. So that's why I was able, they were actually having trouble. They were having difficulty finding artists to draw on model to the Powerpuff Girls. And I was like, that's not really that hard, man. It's got a little wop head and this is this. And he was like, dude, you'd be surprised. The artists we keep getting, they keep wanting to change the style to their style. And I'm like, oh, well, that's not a problem for me. So how much I get? Okay, cool. So style now, I can actually pick and choose. I can choose cartooning, anime, and realistic and merge it. I can choose realistic. I can choose, comic and merge those. I can pick and choose now that I have all these styles in my closet. I can choose. And Bruce Lee was no different. I'm not saying I'm Bruce Lee, that's the director, but he was trained by 3 different masters as a young martial artist. And then he was able to pick and choose, combine certain things from all those masters. And he created his own martial art called Jeet Kune Do. So that's to me, that's the better way to do it. So, but I've met artists that right out of the gate, they have a style. They had a style their whole time, ever since they started drawing, they drew one way. And to me, that's it's cool because you have a voice coming out of the gate. But I've also talked to those artists and they cannot escape it. They cannot draw any other way. That's just the way they draw. And they can be sought after for it, but they're locked in that cage of style. So if you don't like their style, or if, you try to ask them to draw some other way, they're going to say, no, I only draw in one style. I don't have to say that because I did it, I was very malleable as a young artist and I was trying to draw like everybody, video game art, Street Fighter, Sonic the Hedgehog, everything, cartoons and comics and realism. So anime came in and I was just like, what? This is crazy. So yeah, it's to me, I think it's better to don't worry about it. Get your foundations and then explore. That's the fun part because there's no end to how many styles you can actually adhere to or, add to your repertoire.
Yeah, I love the martial art analogy.
Yeah.
It kind of motivated me.
Yeah, listen, that's why I'm like, when everyone says, oh, you draw better than him, I'm like, it's not about better to me because it's still an art form. Mm-hmm. Their martial art is still martial arts. And I can appreciate their martial arts. Doesn't matter where their skill level is. It's just, I see it as art. Like that's their style of martial art, dude. He does a roundhouse, I do a roundhouse, but they just do it differently, with a little twang to it. So that's usually how I try to help people because people understand that. They think people know that you have to train in martial arts. Mm-hmm. They think you just have art. Yeah. You're just born with it. I was like, no, the crap, I wasn't. I was terrible for a long time. And it took training. It took a lot of years of, frustration to the levels to say, why can't I do that the same way they do it? But even in my solitude, and I don't like the word self-taught. And to me, I know what people mean when they're saying, where are you self-taught? I get it. But in my definition, self-taught would be in a vacuum. There is no influence. I taught myself how to draw in my room with no comics, no cartoons, no video, nothing, no influence, nothing influenced me. I was influenced artistically, visually, and stylistically from everything I saw. So I mimicked those things. I wasn't self-taught. I actually self-trained and self-practiced. But yeah, that's where all of that stuff influenced who I am and my art style. But I can change it. If you look down my timeline on Instagram, I can change it to anything I want. I can switch in. Painting is a beautiful, but frustrating style for me, because when you're painting something, I don't know if you paint, but you have to start with, I mean, not say you have to, for painters to matter. Generally speaking, you start with a base color and you build. You have to build up the shadows, the tones, the highlights, and then you get to details and fine detail at the end. And that drives me nuts, because as a comic artist or just a line artist, I can be satisfied with the sketch. And I'm like, I'm done. I don't have to go any further than this. This is exactly what I wanted to show. I can start with the details and it be done, even if I keep everything else loose. Painting takes far more patience, and you're not supposed to be done until you're putting that last couple of highlights and strokes and eyelashes. And I'm like, I don't have patience. I'm a concept artist. So
what was the resources you used to learn? Like, did you use books to understand the fundamentals? Do you watch videos? What exactly helped you understand shadowing and lighting and the base layers?
The simple answer is yes to all of those things. Yes. No, I do. I'm constantly following amazing artists everywhere I can see it. I thought Pinterest was only for like cooking and recipes, because when a young lady friend of mine was telling me, she said, "Oh, I found these cool recipes on Pinterest." I was like, "What's Pinterest?" And she showed me her timeline, and it was just recipes and stuff, but I didn't know it was whatever you're influenced by. You can mold your timeline on Pinterest to show you everything you want. And so my Pinterest looks like, I use it as an influencer, folder of all different styles. I have comics, portraits, I have photography, I have backgrounds and landscapes, I have clothing design, because I'm terrible at, fashion. And keeping up with what women and contemporary fashion looks like. So I have a big folder on there for just fashion. But yeah, it's I'm following as many artists, because the analogy, or I guess as the logic of me doing that as an artist, even though I draw good, drawing is let's just call it striking. Let's go back to the martial art thing. But then there's color. Right? That's a whole nother element in itself. Color is a whole book by itself. Drawing is a whole book. Color is a whole book. Now, then there is, move that over just slight, and at the back of that chapter that has like 70 chapters in it is mood, atmosphere, tone. This is still in color. It's the book color. So I know how to color. But then I'm looking at artists that are using pink for a shadow. I'm like, that's not a cool color. You can't do that, can you? And it looks phenomenal. And I'm like, why? What kind of drugs do they take to say that this bright, vivid color is the shadow color? But it works. Loish, I think she said her name is Loish. She just did a Kickstarter for another art book. She's phenomenal. Phenomenal artist, painter, illustrator, whatever. But I look at her palette. My palette, as a default, is not as vibrant and wonderfully diverse as hers. But that's who I follow, and I still go to her. I have a Pinterest folder for just her, where I'm like, all right, brain, let's use some other colors, man. Let's look at Loish and see what she did here. And looking and being inspired by other people that solved the problem jumpstarts my brain. So I don't have artist block anymore, because I look at other artists and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about movement, dummy. Movement. Let's draw with some movement. looking at other artists that have a full portfolio of studies about just, something that I haven't tried, drawing animals, landscapes, things like that. And I hate landscapes, but looking at someone else do it, I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. I can do that. So I absolutely stay plugged into as many artists and influence as I can, because it's the equivalent of, if I only practice in my closed dojo and I'm sharpening my skills and my techniques, I'll get to a cap where I'm like, hey, I'm good. But then going to a martial arts tournament, so to speak, you get to see, wow, that I've never even thought of doing that before. Wow, this is amazing. And then you take notes. And if you're at a skill level, because musicians do this, you can get a group of musicians around each other, and one musician can say, I'm a start, and you guys follow along. And they can just start playing whatever off the top of their head. The rest of the musicians that are of skill level, they can just start, okay, and they can match that person's direction. So after a certain point, your skill level and understanding of your craft, you can reverse engineer on the fly. So I can reverse and I guess deconstruct someone else's style just at a glance and say, wow, man, that's dope. I'm gonna try that. And then I go and try it. And that's my practice now as an artist that's been drawing over 25 years. So yeah, I definitely do.
What is your typical workflow and process behind making your art and comics? Do you have a specific area that you just sit down and do your work in? And
yeah.
Yeah,
to me, it's I can work anywhere. There are times where I know I can be very lazy as an artist, and lazy may be strong. I can procrastinate creatively because while I love drawing, I love art, I love character design, I love the stuff I do, I don't always feel like doing it. So I'm not just an artist, I'm a creative being. So art is an outlet for that creativity. It's the cheapest outlet that I can afford, because sculpting, painting, being an inventor, saying I want to make this thing I dreamed up, it costs lots of money over time. Illustration is cheap. You can use paper, you can use digital software and create infinitely. But if I'm at my house, I used to have my office in my room, and I said, nah, I need to separate that, because I want, when I'm done, I want to go to a place where I shut my brain off and rest. So I brought it all downstairs. So yeah, I have an office, this place. And then if I'm on the go, I can use my iPad, I can use my laptop, and I can draw. I love actually drawing outside of my house, because I can't logically tell myself, hey man, you drove here, spent gas money, got dressed and all that stuff. I need to probably eat so I don't look like a mooch in this restaurant or place. And now I'm kind of locked in. Like I've invested all this energy to get somewhere to be outside in a different energy. So usually I like that energy. Just coffee shop, little bakery or something like that. And yeah, I used to love bookstores. Drawing in there. They took away all the plugs. I don't like that. So yeah, it's just, but as soon as I'm plugged in or dialed in, it's the funnest part is just letting my brain come up with, things that I'm inspired by. I get excited as an artist and a creative person if there is no one doing something, or to put that simpler, everyone, when Granddad from Boondocks, when John Witherspoon died, everyone was drawing portraits of him, right? And I'm like, I don't want to do, that's not how my brain works. I don't want to just do what everyone's doing. It's, oh, you're the 17th artist to do a portrait of John Witherspoon. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I actually paused and thought to myself, what do I want to say? And I drew Huey and Riley, like kind of broken up. Riley was crying. It was just a sketch. And there was a picture of Granddad and Reese Witherspoon that Riley was holding, right? But he was, had his head down crying, and Huey was over his brother, kind of comforting him. That's what I posted. And it was quite possibly the most liked and shared sketch ever. Like in that year, it was crazy. And people were like, "Are you gonna sell this?" I was like, no, I'm not trying to sell it. That's just what I wanted to say. The way I wanted to say it. I didn't want to draw a portrait of just Reese. I didn't want to do it. That didn't speak to me to do what everyone else was doing. So creatively, a lot of times I'll sit down and draw something like this poster of Black Panther and Akeem from Coming to America. Okay. I thought about this in my solitude. I'm like, that's very similar, actually. Coming to America had an African kingdom, isolated, very successful, very rich. The king was the prince, his father, and the whole story, of course, had nothing to do with him fighting or stuff. But I'm like, what if, Akeem had his own kind of battle armor thing, and what if they met up, and stuff like that. It has no bearing on any reality, but that's fun for me. So creatively, if I'm doing something that I haven't seen, and I Googled it, I'm like, see if does anyone put Akeem and T'Challa together. I couldn't find it, so I'm like, perfect. Yeah. that excites me to draw. So yeah.
How about, is there any difficulties you faced in your journey that you've overcome or may have not and still have to figure out?
Yeah. I'll start with the hardest one. The hardest one is managing yourself. And that's not hard for everybody. It's hard for me because I have a council in my brain. Those big boardrooms have like 7 of me, all representing aspects of my personality. And the loudest in that room is the one that's like, but do you feel like it? Do you feel like it right now? Can't you do it tomorrow? I mean, you worked all week, bro. Guys, we worked all week. Didn't we work all week, Johnson? Yeah, we worked all week. So that part of me is, I can validate. He's such a charming part of my brain because he can absolutely validate saying, you're right. I haven't played video games in like 3 days. I paid for it. I invested in that. I should use it. Well, yeah, everyone vote. Yes, video games instead of doing my work. So managing myself is actually one of the most ongoing challenges, challenging aspects of being an independent entrepreneur. I pay my bills with my art. I actually create, and I go to conventions, and I get money, and I pay I literally live off my craft. So if I don't create, or if I let it get too much, it absolutely affects my financial. So who do I reprimand for that? Myself. And then again, it comes back full circle to, well, can you validate that? Yeah, man, you were tired. You hadn't taken a break. You still haven't taken a vacation, Marcus. I mean, everybody else gets to take vacation. So, but it's an ongoing thing. But outside of that, I guess relationships. I was married for 14 years, wonderful marriage. I love being married. It was great. I had my 2 beautiful children and things like that. But, all the while being an entrepreneur and trying to sustain a relationship can often cause friction because, not just in and of itself, it is challenging because it's energy. You're trying to put out energy on both. You want to be available for your business. You want to be available for your significant other. And it's a tug of war a lot of times because your brain as an entrepreneur doesn't turn off. Like a 9 to 5 is, as soon as you clock out of, I don't know, let's say you work for Home Depot. Hey man, I'm out, deuces. And Home Depot runs stuff. They have people. It's not depending on just you. When you're an entrepreneur though, and your business is you and what you put out and all the energy, you can end at any day, any time during the day, but your brain is like, you know what, I could have put in like this, I need to do this tomorrow. I got 7 things to do. I got to call that person. Your brain never really stops.
Yeah.
So you can clock out or you can make a clock out time. But as a business, you're the business. So, but when that relationship ended, I became a single parent. I became a single father, and I had to rebuild from scratch. I think, you know, it was financially, I was at zero again. So, thankfully, I did get the chance to rebuild. It took like 4 years. I knew what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to do comics and I wanted to do children's books. And that's where I put my efforts. I did everything that I set out to do. I've illustrated well over 30 books, children's books at this point in my career. I've worked in comics. I'm a comic artist now. So, but it wasn't a short path. You know, the challenge of that is it's not even monetary, it's emotional. It's, can you keep yourself positive after losing something as you know, grandiose as a lifelong, as a partnership, you know? And I could have chose to go in a very dark, I could have been spiteful, could have been depressed. I just chose every day, focus on what I can change, focus on what I think is, I want to be happy for my kids, you know? I don't want to be a spiteful parent and an angry parent. I want to be happy. So I focused on everything that made me joyous. Creativity makes me happy. So that's what I did. I focused on that, and it is challenging. It's. I know I'm saying it in such a very, you know, time skippy way. You know, it was 4 years. That was some hard 4 years, man. Because even when you choose to stay positive, life doesn't pause for you. You know, there's still elements of emotional strain, energy, physical. You know, your family members are still like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Like, hold on, just hold on. And you still have to, you got to muscle through it. It's not easy. So I think that's some of the stuff where I really, really, that still comes back to managing myself, I guess. But yeah, it's a struggle to I guess some people don't even realize how I draw as often as I do, and I'm like, well, I try to fit in if I'm trying to, because something I also realized as a young artist was my art and my process is meditation. It's a form of meditation for me. I didn't know that. I didn't have that understanding as a young artist. But in hindsight, looking back, I could get in an argument, you know, or have a bad day, get stuck in traffic, everything, come home, I'm frustrated, and if I get to drawing and being creative, it would just kind of roll off my back, you know, it'd slide off, everything would slide off. And as I come out of that, it'll be 1 hour, 2 hour session of me just sketching. But at the end of it, I'm like, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Yeah, that came out good. And then my whole energy is like clean. So I'm like, all right, good day. What's going on here? And I can get back to being me. But I never really paid attention to the, you know, parallel. That's what meditation is. When you go into yourself, you pull out, you know, inspiration from within. Okay, you think about it, or you focus on that thing for a time, usually some 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, and you come out of it feeling better. But the source is you, internal, you know. So once I understood that, I'm now using that as often as I can. After that relationship ended, I got to focus on art. And that was a wonderful self-medicated or self-treatment, if you will, therapy that absolutely kept me moving in the right direction. So, you know, some people I don't really go shopping. So for some people it's hard to manage finances, and I'm not that guy. So I don't buy Jordans every day or nothing like that. So it's more of a focus on Marcus. Let's get you to being more efficient, more effective at meeting deadlines. And I'm still struggling with that, man. It's just,
yeah, I was just about to ask about like time management for you.
Yeah, it's because I feel like it's fair for me to be a human too.
Yeah.
But you can't make promises as an entrepreneur and not keep them, because that people don't like that. But artists have been doing that for centuries. So I know I'm working on it.
Yeah. It's good to get that understanding from people.
Yeah. And I don't think it's ever going to stop being a problem with businesses, because business-minded people, while they say they understand, they don't. It's not like I'm writing a document and I'm just, I gotta spell check real quick. No, it's like I've finished an art piece and not liked it. Took me time, took me everything. It was what we agreed on. And after I finished, I was like, I don't like this, and started over. And the client is like, why? I was like, I wasn't feeling it. Just wasn't feeling it. And then I present something new and they're like, oh, all right, well, that's better. Yeah, you're right. I was like, yeah, I know it took extra time. Thank you for being patient. But sometimes just the concept of saying, I don't always feel inspired to draw. That energy is not always there. And to try to force it is not going to come out the way you want to. Just trust me. And that's an argument that other people just will not. I don't, unless they get a device where I can put like a helmet on my head and then give it to them. Like, oh, is that what you feel? Yeah, that's how I feel. I don't want to draw today because it's not what I feel like. It's literally like a reservoir to me, and it can run low. And I'm like, you don't want me to draw in that time. Trust me, because I'm not going to do my best work. So yeah, I think that'll be a kind of age-old battle between business-minded people and artists or creatives. It's like, I gotta feel it. And I like put my deadline. I'm like, I know, but I gotta feel it. That's one of those things. I don't think it'll ever stop.
Yeah. So far, what is your most favorite artwork and project that you're most proud of?
Tuskegee Airs.
Yes. Do you care to explain it to the viewers? Sure. What Tuskegee is?
Yes, Tuskegee Airs, like I said, it's co-written and created by myself, and my partner, Greg Branham. He is a writer and author. He has a couple of projects of his own, but Tuskegee Airs is a futuristic sci-fi action adventure that's set 80 years from today. So it's, mid-future? I don't know if it's distant. It's mid-future. It follows 5 young pilots that are being trained by a descendant of the Tuskegee Airmen. These kids are not blood descendants. They are just inheriting the legacy, we like to say. We didn't want to disrespect any of the actual real heirs of the Tuskegee Airmen because they are real. Mm-hmm. There's lots of them. So we created just new pilots that are looking up to the history of the Tuskegee Airmen, and in every way, their work ethic, their teamwork, their ingenuity in piloting, and things like that. The problem is, in the future, manned flight is illegal. So they are learning under the radar. Only drones and computerized aircraft are allowed worldwide reasons. But their instructor, Colonel Mars, has a unwavering feeling that something is going to happen. Something bad is going to happen from, his days as a pilot working for the government. He feels something is coming, something looming. To his, I guess, non-surprise, these large giant robots attack every city on the planet. No one knows who's doing it, who's pulling the strings. And because there is no other defense that is ready to go, aerial and just dispatch, the kids end up being the first line of defense to kind of show up to the scene. And they show up to a futuristic Atlanta on a mission, and they actually are the first ones to defeat one of the robots. And this is all in the first book, spoilers. Yeah, so that's where we start our story. The kids are going to uncover their mission, which is, it's going to take them worldwide. We love highlighting, we're not changing any history in terms of the Tuskegee Airmen. We like to highlight history throughout the book, but it's not in this boring, in 19, we like to say we drop nuggets of information throughout the book. the kids are going to go to Easter Island. They go to Mexico and see Olmec heads. They're going to travel, the world over based on their mission. And no, I'm not going to spoil that part. It's just like we like to highlight lesser known historical aspects, civilizations, things like that. And this is an all ages book. We did not dumb anything down. It's not for kids. We have like cosplayers that are our age and above, because we wanted it to, I guess, be entertaining to us as we are now, but also our kid versions of ourselves. If I was a kid and I saw this, I would have digested every single page. But it's because it still doesn't exist in mainstream media. There is no such thing as a 5 young Black anything on any channel. Disney, you name it. The last animated feature that broke the rule of 3. You know what the rule of 3 is? Have you heard of that?
I remember you talking about it in an interview before, where there has to be 3 Black characters.
Main characters, yeah. 3 Black main characters in any mainstream media, whatever. As soon as you add 4, the industry says, "Oh, this must be for Black people." Yeah. So if you break the rule of 3, this is for Black people, must be, which is not true. It's just what the industry wants us to believe. So Black Panther must have been for Black people, which it wasn't. It was just a cool ass movie. So, we did that on purpose, and we're still seeing every time we get in front of an audience, things like that. If anyone sees the book and they open the book and they go through the book and read it, we're not targeting Black people only. We're just targeting anyone that likes history, loves Tuskegee Airmen, and wants to see a cool story. There are giant robots. Their planes do transform into giant robots. I didn't mention that. I'm sorry. They get some planes that actually transform into giant robots. They start off piloting the P-51 Mustangs from World War II. They're just renovated, but those are propeller planes. That's not going to cut it against giant robots. So they get an upgrade to some jets that actually do transform into giant robots. They just don't know how to do that right off the bat. So they get a little help from some folks. But yeah, that's the premise. Basically, that's where we start our story. We're 4 books in. We have a graphic novel online that collects the first 3 issues, and then issue 4 came out last year. So it's pretty cool. I'm biased.
Yeah. I think the concept is really crazy. Like, and it also like inspired me to learn more. I actually, last night I was watching the history behind it with my dad, and he wanted me to watch Red Tails.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're planning on doing that because of Tuskegee.
Yeah, man. Yep. If you missed it in school, which you shouldn't have missed it, but that's another crazy part. A component is Tuskegee Airmen. For those that missed it, these were the first African-American pilots allowed into the actual military as pilots. There was no Black pilots before that point. So it was almost an experiment to say that the US military did not really think they'd succeed, because they didn't give them all the best equipment. They weren't given the same facilities. They got, their own airport, they got their own planes, and they weren't the great. It wasn't the best. But if you actually do have a chance to drive by Tuskegee Airport, which is in Alabama, you can go check it out. They have a museum there now. They have all this wonderful photography of everyone that supported these pilots. They had mechanics, they had nurses, and there was men and women supporting this pilot. I used to think it was just the pilots, but no, it was a whole fleet of amazing Black people, African-American people, and more that were supporting them during this time. And they ended up becoming some of the most decorated pilots in history. So it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of history. I've gone into classrooms, 3rd grade, 4th grade on up, like at the end of Black History Month. Like, hey kids, y'all know about the Tuskegee Airmen, right? No hands.
Yeah.
Like, and I look at the teacher, I'm like,
yeah.
All right, kids, it's not your fault. That's why I'm here. Let's talk about it. It's not being taught in history books.
There is so many times in history we were just going over the same stuff, and I haven't had a chance to learn about so many Black history moments because they weren't taught in school at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible. So that's one of those things where that's another cool aspect of why we feel it's important. It's not just entertainment. It's not just entertainment. These were real people that these kids look up to. And looking up to your past can absolutely influence your future if you know where to look. Don't let someone else give you, certain stories that they think is appropriate. Martin Luther King is a beautiful, figure to look up to. But the Tuskegee Airmen absolutely pushed back against racism and still came out on top and shined. They didn't get their credit, in their lifetime. I guess in their time that they were actually being successful. Racism suppressed them even then. But now, before they died, a lot of them got, their awards and their medals for what they did, but they were close to 100 years old, 90 plus years old. But people should still learn about them. This is American history. It's not Black history. It's actually American history. They were in the American military, and they helped beat, help win the war. So it's one of those things. So we're working in baby steps. Mm-hmm.
I actually noticed on your YouTube channel you had a Tuskegee animatic, and
yes.
There is also a fighting scene that you did.
Yeah.
Are you planning on making an animation for it, or yeah?
Yeah, I think that was the goal, like from the very first conversation between me and Greg, is, just imagine if this was a cartoon. So that's absolutely been the plan from the beginning. It's just animation is stupidly expensive, ridiculously expensive to do it the way both he and I see it in my mind. I watch a lot of anime. Greg was not traditionally an anime fan, but I've kind of given him some homework assignments to watch this. I want it to look and be created as authentically as we can to make it feel, move, and animate like traditional anime. And I'm not of that class of saying, well, it's not done by Japanese people. It's like saying someone can't learn how to cook soul food if they really care and show empathy. Someone can be trained on how to cook soul food. There's methodology to it. There are steps to it. There are ingredients. You can replicate soul food, but you have to pay attention to the source. You have to value the source material. You do not have to be Japanese to understand Japanese animation and recreate Japanese animation. It's just, there's an authentic, Japanese animation, if you want to call it that, and say, well, yeah, these are the masters right here. I learned from the masters. That's like anything else. Human beings can learn in something and replicate it through practice. You don't have to be Japanese. That's ridiculous. But I do value and absolutely respect the formulas and ingredients they put into there, because it's work. There's no way around it. You have to work and really draw. Like I said, I don't want to be the guy animating it, but I do want to hire the people that know how to. So that's what I mean by I want it to feel authentic. And I'm a stickler for quality. I want it to feel and look like they're watching something that was created by the same ingredients. So yeah, it's gonna be that.
It's gonna be there. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I also noticed on your website the Storm fan fiction with Black Panther. And I just want to say, like, I love the concept of them being a happy married couple with children that inherit all these super powers.
Yeah.
But I was so mad during the movie when I saw Black Panther fall in love with another woman. I had the Storm series and everything. I have her comics on like the side of me, and I was just so upset when I saw it.
Yeah, I'd say give it time. I think they seeded it in there on purpose. Like she was like, they didn't fall madly in love at the end of that movie. They kind of reconciled a little bit. She's like, I still got work to do. So, But I think if they're smart, and I just saw a post online today that says Marvel is going to have Storm bear T'Challa's baby in a future storyline or something. I'm like, oh, now you get it. Wonderful. And she has in other timelines, they've done it in animation where it was like I don't want to say alternate reality, Storm and T'Challa. They had a kid before, but mine was like, stop it. How dope it would be to have a royal African superhero family. Okay, super powered family show up to anything in their own jet, step out, be like, what's the situation? Oh, what's up, X-Men? What's happening? I really don't think Storm deserves to be a team member of the X-Men. She's done enough for them, man. She needs to be like her own joint, her own thing. But yeah, like, what? And then after all is said and done, the villains beat up, they get on their jet and be like, all right, deuces, peace. Wakanda out. And then just go home. And I'm like, that would be amazing. I would read that whole series if it was well written. Yes.
Yeah.
I just give it time. Have faith. I think if they're intelligent, they're going to introduce Storm and as a the way they did Black Panther in Civil War. She's just going to come in. She's going to influence some stuff, and then they're going to make her own movie. And then Black Panther and Storm are going to have a movie or something, and it'll be billions of dollars later. It'll be fun.
It's just so crazy how much they overlook Storm. It's insane.
It is. If they want to get that money, you go ahead and make that Storm, movie and make it well. Mm-hmm. Literally, same care. And she's an African woman. She is from Africa. She is not African American. She's an African. So literally, go learn about her culture and infuse that character and just bring her into MCU. $1 billion right there.
I would love it.
Right?
This is actually the final question that I have written down.
Oh, okay. All right.
It is simply, is there any advice that you want to share to the viewers of the animation and illustration community?
Yes. Something I often say to artists that are up and coming, and they how do you draw like that, man? How do I get better? And it's I'll say the same thing always, which is, a mom reached out to me on LinkedIn recently. She said, my son loves art and I just wanted to pick your brain on how do I help them improve. Well, no one can help you improve like you can. But there's a right way to practice. This is my opinion. There's a right way to practice and there's a wrong way to practice. There's, or I should say there's an efficient way to practice and there's an inefficient way. Let's say that. Right, wrong, efficient, inefficient, which is to draw daily and just draw what you think something looks like. That's inefficient. That's not growing your understanding of lines, shapes, clothing, hands, anatomy. You have to draw from reference at least once a day. At least once. So that's, what do I mean by that? It's like if I were to draw you in your beautiful hair there and everything, right? If I see a photo of you and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna try to draw that. You draw to the best of your ability, but as you're doing that, if you've never drawn that as an artist, if you've never drawn texture of hair, if you've never drawn, you're still working on getting better at noses and lips and eyes, right? Picking a new image daily gives you, and I'll preface it by saying your brain, your art brain, it's like a desktop with a whole bunch of folders on it, okay? Like a desktop, like Windows. In your folder of hair, natural hair, it's empty unless you start literally, you can't just look at hair and fill that folder, right? Your brain only locks and saves that data if you look at reference of hair and try to draw it. Okay, get through that. Doesn't have to be finished. Just try to draw what you see to the best of your ability based on something. Then your brain says, okay, after looking at it, after trying to draw it, I'm going to save these two experiences together. And then it becomes data for you to use later. Okay, you can't just draw from your imagination and expect to improve, because what's your checks and balances? You can say, well, that came out good, I think. But unless it's actually trying to base it on, something new data, new information, your brain's not really learning anything new. It's just doing what it thinks it's good at. So now, that's the equation. See something, try to draw it, and get to a point of satisfaction. If you do that once a day, you will improve vastly quicker than if you're just drawing from what you think. Now, just like anything, an instrument, piano, guitar, if you practice once a day, you'll improve. But if you practice 3 times a day, will you get there faster? Yes. It's just the way math works. So if you have a sketchbook and you hate drawing hands, okay, draw 3 hands a day. They don't have to be finished. You just have to sketch. Look at images of hands and try to sketch them to the best ability. If you don't have the internet for some reason, but you got a smartphone, take your smartphone, okay, take a picture of your hand in 3 different poses, right? Whatever you want, and try to draw that. The more you actually practice daily, the faster you improve your skill.
Mm-hmm.
A year's time, 6 months go by, a year goes by, and you're using that method. It doesn't matter what you're trying to draw or improve to draw on: cars, people, animals, whatever, anatomy. Using that method and that actual equation, you will vastly improve. I didn't know this as a young artist. I still do it today, and I still have to use reference. Reference is not a bad thing. Drawing from your memory is not a bad thing. It's fun. It's a great exercise. But if you're trying to improve and gain more knowledge, you have to get that data from somewhere, you know, and the challenge has to be draw it to the best of my ability. Now, on the other side of this is, well, what if I want to learn, what if the image is boring? You can apply your imagination to your reference. A woman is, let's say you're drawing a ballerina and she's doing a cool pose. You could use that data, the pose, the lighting, the muscle structure, the anatomy, the hair even, and then slap a superhero suit on top of it, or, you know, make it a robot, whatever. You're still using information, new information, and to spice it up and make it fun, you can apply your imagination on top of that as another layer. So now it's, okay, now it's exciting. I drew a Dragon Ball Z character using this reference photo, right? Mm-hmm. And that's fine. That's totally fine. Your brain is still learning. So that's one of my biggest, most asked questions is, how do I improve? Or how do I improve? Me personally, I do that daily. This shirt is not based on a photo, but the hand, I did this, you know, in the, you know, and I took a picture of myself and I just pushed and pulled. So that's the kind of thing where it's, I still use reference every day. It's impossible to draw everything from every angle. So that's the beauty of it, is you can draw anatomy for 40 years. Turn the light off or turn the lights down, and your brain is like, I've never drawn it like this before. Cool, this is now dramatic lighting. Yeah. So there's infinite practice that you can constantly do daily. And that's why I still want to get back to figure drawing. That was like the biggest hit to me, is I finally had time to go do figure drawing. There's a really great place here in Atlanta, at the Portfolio Center. They were holding it at the Portfolio Center in Atlanta every Tuesday. And it was led by Brian Stelfreeze, who is a fantastic, phenomenal artist. And it was cheap. It was like $10. Really? Yeah. Oh. He would get amazing models that knew how to actually pose, which is a real thing. Don't get the models that are doing this. Yeah. You know, they actually did really creative poses and stuff. And I finally had time, and then COVID dropped it. No. Yeah, I was like, no.
Are they starting it back up anytime soon?
I haven't gotten any emails. He was really good about emailing, because you can sign up to the email list. You know, so he would email and say, hey, class is going on. This is the time. Here's the model. You know, we're going to be there and stuff like that. It was great, but I haven't gotten any emails, so I can only assume that he's probably, you know, either not garnering enough support, or the school is not open for. I don't know, but I cannot. I've done a few here and there, some figure drawing, random sessions. There's a great model that was from that class. Mm-hmm. From those sessions, she started doing her own figure drawing sessions, where she would invite artists to come on out. You know, I'm going to be posing over here. I'm like, sweet. So I've done a few of those, but not nearly enough. I wanted to really dive back into, you know, anatomy again. So when it comes back, I'm gonna do it. So yeah.
I actually have one more question. I
Yes.
remember you talking about doing workshops and tutorials on one of your interviews. Have you
Yes.
been planning, or have you started doing it, or are you planning on doing it anytime soon?
I am actually. That's a part of the same publishing solution. So myself as a brand, there's a problem with social media. Is that they get to dictate. You can have 500,000 followers. They get to dictate who sees what. You know, they can limit and if you want to boost this post, pay some money. And now, okay, now the rest, a little bit more of my following will see the post, but they control it. So I want to get my own app together where I'm doing the exact same thing. It's just anybody that wants to be plugged into my art or my creativity or whatever I put out, it's a direct. And I'm still going to be online. It's just I'm trying to, if y'all want to, if I hold a course, digital drawing, digital character design, whatever, I want to be able to put that out on my app and say, yeah, come, I'm going to do a workshop. And people will then come to the app and I'll host it there, and I may put it on YouTube or segments of it on YouTube or other places. Afterwards, I think I'm going to do Twitch, maybe, eventually, but it's all, of course, to draw back to a source. I want to have a source for my stuff. And so if I get 10% of my Instagram following, that's 10,000 people. So I'll be happy with that and say, okay, yeah. So if I'm doing any education workshops or tutorials, tutorials are going to be different because it's going to be, let's say, an hour long, but it's recorded. Workshops is going to be, I'm live and I'm drawing live and you're drawing and we're talking about something. You can ask questions, I can answer questions. So I want to do that, but I'm creating that platform. So I don't have to depend on anybody's platform to say what I can and can't do, but I'll still have my strings, my lines up to these other things because people are there. People are on YouTube. I understand YouTube. I'm sorry that you had to go to my YouTube channel. It's barren. I don't feed it very often, but I will. I have the videos recorded. So, but I want the source to be there, and I tease on YouTube. I give like little, hey, watch the rest of this on my app.
So is the app in progress right now?
It is.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Exciting.
It's a lot. You know what? That's a lot. It's a lot to reel my creativity back because I want everything to be functional on day one. And I'm like, that's probably not going to be realistic. So I'm trying to mitigate my own creativity. Okay, the basic core functionality is on day one, and I'm going to iterate and iterate and iterate as time goes, so I can make it as sexy as possible and be competitive and say, I want to make it worth. I want it to be an experience, but it's probably not going to have all the furniture on day one. So it's going to be a space, and you can buy stuff, you can look at stuff, and you can share stuff, but not all the tools are going to be in it right away. So I'm working on it.
That's exciting. I'll stay updated.
Yes, no, I'm going to post everywhere once it's ready to go. Because it is, I think that's this year is going to be a focus. 2020, it's not a New Year's resolution because it's taken this long for me to focus and get to it. I've been really busy. This past 2 years have been really busy. So 2022 is going to be a focus on my brand and making sure I'm established. I want to make everything available that I've done and have it making money for me when I take naps or when I'm not drawing. The tutorials can, make money for me once I upload them, and put them up. If people want to pay to learn this aspect of what I do, that should be making me money. So I'm going to focus on my branding and try to round out. I do need a vacation. I do. It's been a lot of work, so I'm gonna once I get everything at least stable, the first half of this year, I think I'll just kind of float away for a little while. And I'll still be working. I'll still be traveling to Comic-Cons and stuff like that. Yeah, let's see about it. Yeah. Have you gone to any Comic-Cons?
No, actually, I have tickets for MomoCon, but not Comic-Con.
That's a good one. That's a good one. No, MomoCon's great. So that's a great one to do. Let's see, there's Dragon Con. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Then there's Anime Week in Atlanta. There is, I'm missing another one. Those are some good ones to start with. If if nothing else, MomoCon's great. So I do that whenever you have the organizers, they're fantastic. So they're really cool people. So that's a good one. I'll be there.
You'll be there?
I will be there. Yep. I'm there everywhere. I did some artwork. I usually do artwork for the convention. So for like their banners and stuff, I'll do some character art for them. Cool. Yeah, I really appreciate the interview. This has been really cool. And like I said, if I'm honored enough to come back, there's other elements that we can talk about, because it is a lot. Business and making a living, is a whole other wonderful conversation, because there is efficient ways to do this, and there's ways that you can crash and burn. And I told someone I hate that there's a term called starving artist, as if it's unique to any other business. I'm like, there should be starving restaurant owners.
Yeah.
There's 90% people that start a restaurant will actually fail and go out of business. I'm like, why don't they have their term? But it is a business. It's traditionally not treated as such, because most times that term or that saying references the passion of the creative person, that they would do their craft even if they don't have money coming in. So starving artist references, hey man, you're broke. That's not a job. That's not a real job, because you're not making any money. Yeah. But they're referencing that passion. Like, I would draw even if I didn't make money on it. But you can make money. It is a business. You can totally. I'm not starving. I need to lose weight, so I can support my family. I have to, my teenagers eat every day. I try to tell them to starve sometimes, but they don't listen. But yeah, it's that's a whole other aspect. So maybe we can talk about some other stuff.
I would love to talk about it some more.
Yeah. All right. Well, you had some great questions, so yeah, I'm sure it'll be a good interview. So.
Yeah, I'm sure like right after this, I'm gonna be like, shoot, why didn't I ask him this? I just don't have it in my head right now.
Yeah. Let's do it. That's cool. I had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was very much an honor to talk to you. Like, I was thinking about how surreal it is to be talking to you right now.
Come on now. I'm regular people.
So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this. And everybody go follow Marcus the Visual on social media.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Don't judge me. All right. Thank you.